Hey, squirrels, reading time. And I'm always grabbing nuts. I shouldn't do that before I come home because I'm struggling with little pieces. Look what I got, what came in the mail today. I broke it. Oh, Lordy. From Webb's. These were on big sale. $6.99 for, I think they're 100% wool. Cloud-born fibers, Highland fingering, a little bliss in every stitch. This is plum heather and lavender heather. Won't that be pretty? And a shawl together. There are 400 and something. Hang on. Hold fast, like Mama used to say. 494 yards, 100% fine Highland wool. Yep. It's a #1 fingering. Yep. So, I'm going to take two and make a, probably some sort of lacy shawl, capelet, something, one of these days. I'll be showing that live today, if I can go live. Y'all pray. Yesterday was a fiasco, and on Mama's Day. And my watch time is going down the tubes. I hate to keep crying about that, but oh my gosh. I went from 2, and now it's 1.7. Help me, Jesus. Anyway. Let's see, what were we on? We are on this is chapter 16, part 2. Part 2. Or dose. True, nevertheless, a short speech, but the quiet decision with which it was uttered contrasted curiously with the young speaker. Laurie felt this instinctively and laid himself down again with a sense of disappointment, which he could not explain. His look and silence, as well as a certain inward self-disapproval, ruffled Amy and made her resolve to deliver her lecture without delay. "I wish you'd do me the favor to rouse yourself a little," she said sharply. "Do it for me, there's a dear girl. I could if I tried," and she looked as if she would like doing it in the most summery style. "Try then, I give you leave," returned Laurie, who enjoyed having someone to tease after his long abstinence from his favorite pastime. "You'd be angry in 5 minutes." "I'm never angry with you. It takes 2 flints to make a fire. You're as cool and soft as snow. You don't know what I can do. Snow produces a glow and a tingle if applied rightly. Your indifference is half affection, and a good stirring up would prove it." "Stir away, it won't hurt me, and it may amuse you," as the big man said when his little wife beat him. "Regard me in the light of a husband or a carpet, and beat till you're tired, if that sort of exercise agrees with you." Being decidedly nettled herself and longing to see him shake off the apathy that so altered him, Amy sharpened both tongue and pencil and began. "Flo and I have got a new name for you. It's Lazy Lawrence. How do you like it?" She thought it would annoy him, but he only folded his arms under his head with an imperturbable, "That's not bad. Thank you, ladies. Do you want to know what I honestly think of you?" Pining to be told. "Well, I despise you." If she had even said, "I hate you," in a petulant or coquettish tone, he would have laughed and rather liked it. But the grave, almost sad accent in her voice made him open his eyes and ask quickly, "Why, if you please?" "Because, with every chance for being good, useful, and happy, you are faulty, lazy, and miserable." "Strong language, mademoiselle. If you like it, I'll go on. Pray do. It's quite interesting. I thought you'd find it so selfish. People always like to talk about themselves. Am I selfish? The question slipped out involuntarily and in a tone of surprise, for the one virtue on which he had prided himself was generosity. Yes, very selfish, continued Amy in a calm, cool voice, twice as effective just then as an angry one. I'll show you how. For I've studied you while we were frolicking, and I'm not at all satisfied with you. Here you have been abroad nearly 6 months and have done nothing but waste time and money and disappoint your friends. Isn't a fella to have any pleasure after a 4-year grind? You don't look as if you'd had much. At any rate, you are none the better for it as far as I can see. I said when we first met that you had improved. Now I take it all back, for I don't think you have so nice as when I left you at home. You have grown abominably lazy. You like gossip and waste time on frivolous things. You are contented to be petted and admired by silly people instead of being loved and respected by wise ones. With money, talent, position, health, and beauty, you like that old vanity. But it's the truth, so I can't help saying it. With all these splendid things to use and enjoy, you can find nothing to do but dawdle. And instead of being the man you ought to be, you are only—" There she stopped with a look that had both pain and pity in it. "St. Lawrence on a gridiron," added Laurie, blandly finishing the sentence. But the lecture began to take effect, for there was a wide-awake sparkle in his eyes now, and a half-angry, half-injured expression replaced the former indifference. "I suppose you'd take it so. You men tell us we are angels and say we can make you what we will, but the instant we honestly try to do you good, you laugh at us and won't listen, which proves how much your flattery is worth." Amy spoke bitterly and turned her back on the exasperating martyr at her feet. In a minute a hand came down over the page so that she could not draw, and Laurie's voice said with a droll imitation of a penitent child, "I'll be good. Oh, I'll be good." But Amy did not laugh, for she was in earnest, and tapping on the outspread hand with her pencil, said soberly, "Aren't you ashamed of a hand like that? It's as soft and white as a woman's, and looks as if it never did anything but wear Joven's best gloves and pick flowers for ladies. You're not a dandy, thank heaven, so I'm glad to see there are no diamonds or big seal rings on it. Only the old one Joe gave you so long ago. Dear soul, I wish you were here to help me." "So do I." The hand vanished as suddenly as it came, and there was energy enough in the echo of her wish to suit even Amy. She glanced down at him with a new thought in her mind, but he was lying with his hat half over his face as if for shade, and his mustache hid his mouth. She only saw his chest rise and fall with a long breath that might have been a sigh, and the hand that wore the ring nestled down into the grass as if to hide something too precious or too tender to be spoken of. All in a minute, various hints and trifles assumed shape and significance in Amy's mind, and told her what her sister never had confided to her. She remembered that Laurie never spoke voluntarily of Joe. She recalled the shadow on his face just now, the change in his character, and the wearing of the little old ring, which was no ornament to a handsome hand. Girls are quick to read such signs and feel their eloquence. Amy had fancied that perhaps a love trouble was at the bottom of the alteration, and now she was sure of it. Her keen eyes filled, and when she spoke again, it was in a voice that could be beautifully soft and kind when she chose to make it so. "I know I have no right to ask so to you, Laurie, and if you weren't the sweetest tempered fellow in the world, you'd be angry with me. But we're all so fond and proud of you, I couldn't bear to think they should be disappointed in you at home, as I have been, though. Perhaps they would Wait a minute. I couldn't bear to think they should be disappointed in you at home, as I have been, though perhaps they would understand the change better than I do. I think they would, came from under the hat in a grim tone quite as touching as a broken one. They ought to have told me and not let me go blundering and scolding when I should have been more kind and patient than ever. I never did like that Miss Randall. And now I hate her, said artful Amy, wishing to be sure of her facts this time. Hang Miss Randall, and Laurie knocked the hat off his face with a look that left no doubt of his sentiments toward that young lady. I beg pardon, I thought, and there she paused diplomatically. No, you didn't. You knew perfectly well I never cared for anyone but Joe, Laurie said in his old impetuous tone, and turned his face away as he spoke. I did think so, but as they never said anything about it, and you came away, I supposed I was mistaken. And Joe wouldn't be kind to you? Why, I was sure she loved you dearly. She was kind, but not in the right way, and it's lucky for her she didn't love me if I'm the good-for-nothing fella you think me. It's her fault, though, and you may tell her so. The hard, bitter look came back again as he said that, and it troubled Amy, for she did not know what balm to apply. I was wrong. I didn't know. I'm very sorry I was so cross, but I can't help wishing you'd bear it better, Teddy dear. Don't. That's her name for me, said Laurie, Laurie put up his hand with a quick gesture to stop the words spoken in Joe's half-kind, half-reproachful tone. Wait till you've tried it yourself, he added in a low voice as he pulled up the grass by the handful. I'd take it manfully and be respected if I couldn't be loved, said Amy with the decision of one who knew nothing about it. Now Laurie flattered himself that he had borne it remarkably well, making no moan, asking no sympathy, and taking his trouble away to live it down alone. Amy's lecture put the matter in a new light, and for the first time it did look weak and selfish to lose heart at the first failure and shut himself up in a moody indifference. He felt as if suddenly shaken out of a pensive dream, and found it impossible to go to sleep again. Presently he sat up and asked slowly, Do you think Joe would despise me as you do? Yes, if she saw you now. She hates lazy people. Why don't you do something splendid and make her love you? I did my best, but it was no use. Graduating well, you mean? That was no more than you ought to have done for your grandfather's sake. It would have been shameful to fail after spending so much time and money when everyone knew that you could do well. I did fail. Say what you will, for Joe wouldn't love me, began Laurie, leaning his head on his hand in a despondent attitude. No, you didn't, and you'll say so in the end, for it did you good and proved that you could do something if you tried. If you'd only set about another task of some sort, you'd soon be your hearty, happy self again and forget your trouble. That's impossible. Try it and see. You needn't shrug your shoulders and think much she knows about such things. I don't pretend to be wise, but I am observing, and I see a great deal more than you'd imagine. I'm interested in other people's experiences and inconsistencies, and though I can't explain it, I remember and use them for my own benefit. Love Joe all your days if you choose, but don't let it spoil you, for it's wicked to throw away so many good gifts because you can't have the one you want. There, I won't lecture any more, for I know you'd wake up and be a man in spite of that hard-hearted... You'll wake up and be a man in spite of that hard-hearted girl. Neither spoke for several minutes. Laurie sat turning the little ring on his finger, and Amy put the last touches to the hasty sketch she'd been working at while she talked. Presently she put it on his knee, merely saying, How you like that? He looked, and then he smiled as he could not as he could not well help doing, for it was capitally done. The long, lazy figure on the grass, with listless face, half-shut eyes, and one hand holding a cigar from which came the little wreath of smoke that encircled the dreamer's head. "Oh, how well you draw," he said, with a genuine surprise and pleasure at her skill, adding with a half laugh, "Yes, that's me. As you are, this is as you were." And Amy laid another sketch beside the one he held. It was not nearly so well done, but there was a life and spirit in it which atoned for many faults, and it recalled the past so vividly that a sudden change swept over the young man's face as he looked. Only a rough sketch of Laurie taming a horse. Hat and coat were off, and every line of the active figure, resolute face, and commanding attitude was full of energy and meaning. The handsome brute, just subdued, stood arching his neck under the tightly drawed rein, with one foot impatiently pawing the ground, and ears pricked up as if listening for the voice that had mastered him. In the ruffled mane, the rider's breezy hair and erect attitude, there was a suggestion of sudden arrested motion, of strength, courage, and youthful buoyancy that contrasted sharply with the supine grace of the dolce far niente sketch. Laurie said nothing, but as his eyes went from one to the other, Amy saw him flush up and fold his lips together as if he read and accepted the little lesson she had given him. That satisfied her. And without waiting for him to speak, she said in her sprightly way, "Don't you remember the day you played Rary with Puck and we all looked on? Meg and Beth were frightened, but Joe clapped and pranced, and I sat on a fence and drew you. I found that sketch in my portfolio the other day, touched it up and kept it to show you." "Much obliged. You've improved immensely since then, and I congratulate you. May I venture to suggest, in a honeymoon paradise, that 5 o'clock is the dinner hour at your hotel?" Laurie rose as he spoke, returned the pictures with a smile and a bow, and looked at his watch as if to remind her that even moral lectures should have an end. He tried to resume his former easy, indifferent air, but it was an affection now, for the rousing had been more efficacious than he would confess. Amy felt the shade of coldness in his manner and said to herself, "Now I've offended him. Well, if it does him good, I'm glad. If it makes him hate me, I'm sorry, but it's true and I can't take back a word of it." They laughed and chatted all the way back home, and little Baptiste up behind thought that Monsieur and Mademoiselle were in charming spirits, but both felt ill at ease. The friendly frankness was disturbed, the sunshine had a shadow over it, and despite their apparent gaiety, there was a secret discontent in the heart of each. "Shall we see you this evening, mon frere?" asked Amy as they parted at her aunt's door. "Unfortunately, I have an engagement. Au revoir, mademoiselle." And Laurie bent as if to kiss her hand in the foreign fashion which became him better than many men. Something in his face made Amy say quickly and warmly, "No, be yourself with me, Laurie, and pardon the good old way. I'd rather have a hearty English handshake than all the sentimental salutations in France. Goodbye, dear." And with these words, uttered in the tone she liked, Laurie left her after a handshake almost painful in its heartiness. Next morning, instead of the usual call, Amy received a note which made her smile at the beginning and sigh at the end. "My dear mentor, please make my adieu to your aunt and exult within yourself, for lazy Lawrence has gone to his grandpa. Like the best of boys, a pleasant winter to you, and may the gods grant you a blissful honeymoon at Valrosa. I think Fred would be benefited by a rouser. Tell him so with my congratulations. Yours gratefully, Telemachus. Good boy, I'm glad he's gone, said Amy with an approving smile. The next minute her face fell as she glanced about the empty room, adding with an involuntary sigh, yes, I'm glad, but how I shall miss him. And that's all. Chapter 16. And the next chapter will be called The Valley of the Shadow. And it's 3:25 as I comment this on Monday. What is today? The 10th of May, 2021. Hopefully, like I said at the beginning, pray that I'll be live at 5 and that it will go smoothly. It's just on YouTube, but I had problems even with YouTube yesterday. Love y'all. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. Bye.